This episode is sponsored by Bigger City. Thank you so much for supporting us and helping our show to grow.
Hello and welcome to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we talk about the things that are weighing on our minds. I'm Trevor Keyson. I'm a super chub, and today I'm a cloudy coffee boy. It's a cloudy morning. It's cool. I've got my coffee. I've got some pastry, and I'm just having Sunday morning vibes because it's Sunday morning.
Yay! Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Willer. I am a chubby chaser, and welcome to the BiggerBash Roundup episode. I'm so excited to get into it.
Hey, buddy, I'm Don. I'm a big chubby guy living here in sunny Hollywood, and today I am a coked up Don boy because I'm out of tea, so all we had was Coke. So,
yeah. You can't start your day without your morning Coke.
It's just so hard to get out of bed without it nowadays.
Hi, I'm Dan Oliverio, author, public speaker, and chubby chaser. And yes, I am excited to talk about BiggerBash. I had a great time. People had various times. Mine was great.
Lots to discuss. But before we get to that, we wanted to remind everybody that for our 200th episode, which will be coming out probably in a month and a half-ish. Actually, I don't want to say that. For our 200th episode, which will be coming out somewhat soon, it's coming right up pretty darn fast. We wanted to do like a listener write-in show, except with voice memos. So if you had a favorite memory of the show or an experience of how the show has affected your life, you can record it in a little voice memo on your phone, send it to us, and we'll do kind of like a clip show and put it all together and celebrate 200 episodes. Well, minimum 200 episodes.
It depends how you count, but boy, yeah, a lot of episodes.
I'm really looking forward to hearing to some of the listeners' thoughts on the show and this stuff. I'm really looking forward to it because getting to talk with some of the folks at BiggerBash about their impressions of the show and the impressions that we've made was really heartwarming. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And if you do find yourself feeling a little shy about the voice memos, you can also just write us and we'll read it for you. That also works just as well.
Also, thank you to our patrons supporting us on Patreon. Check out our Patreon. There's minisodes, behind the scenes, cutting room floor, just all sorts of fun stuff.
Little fun inside things.
Yeah, and it's a great way to support the podcast. Other ways, you can buy a Big Fig using our affiliate link.
That's a mattress.
Or you can get some cute bear skin, some shorts, some underwear, some swimsuits.
We've been seeing some returns on that. We see you guys buying your underwear.
And you can use promo code BigFatGayPod and save 15%.
Yay, bearskin.
All right, everybody. We ready to start this BiggerBash Roundup?
Yes.
Let's do this right with a mailbag.
So we had a listener write in saying that he recently attended BiggerBash and it was his first Chub Chaser event. And he says, I have to say, maybe I came in with Cinderella-esque dreams. I wasn't let down by the event itself, but by those attending, especially the interactions I had with a handful of chasers. He talks about messaging with chasers before the event. Good plan. Getting interest from some. But then once he got to the event, he says, quote, I felt a totally different vibe. While it's nice to see so many folks in one place, I also think the buffet of bodies makes it hard for folks to know what to do. Oh, yes. Yes. I have so much to say about that, but I'll continue. He says that chasers seem to be, quote, totally distracted by the other 500 guys they saw there. Yep. He talks about not being big enough or young enough or hairy enough, etc. ad nauseum. They were obviously some exceptions to this, he says, and even some chasers who behaved well, including those who gave me a polite thanks, but no thanks, and some that even gave reasons, which he hastens to say, it may seem terse or harsh, but at least I knew where I stood, and I always appreciate honesty first. I find that's very common for a lot of people.
Yeah.
He then mentions a particularly hurtful interaction that he had at the dance party on Saturday night that sent him reeling. He says, quote, granted, this wasn't a long event, but there's not much time to get to know people. But as a chub and someone who really wanted to make one, meaningful connections with chasers, and two, feel part of something bigger, pun intended, he felt totally disenfranchised. And he says, I've told myself there's no way in hell I'd be coming to another event anytime soon, nor will I feel like endorsing these events if this is the normal behavior. Okay. And you think, we lost one. And then but then he goes on to say, to the chaser who was so sweet and kind and patient at the pool party and after on Friday, I thank you. I really do hope I get to see you again. Also Friday night, if it weren't so loud, that was a really loud party on Friday.
Yeah. Very loud.
Yeah.
I would have stopped to say hello. And I think I recognized Trevor, but I couldn't hear his voice to make sure. So I stayed out of the way and as he was with friends. I even think Dan may have complimented me as he walked by the pool deck that night. It wasn't all bad, but I can't really seem to shake the negative feelings I got from all too many folks. Maybe I'm just an oversensitive puss, or do I have a point? Love the podcast. You've helped me try and come out of my shell in so many ways.
Oh.
Thanks for writing in.
Yeah.
I know that I'm sure that was a difficult letter to write.
Yeah. And it's a difficult thing to endure because it's this weird thing where you do keep second guessing yourself. And by the way, as someone who is a veteran of these events, yes, I have experienced being both on top of the world and two, being passed over for the potted plant to my left. It is, and it's not just Chubs, it's Chasers too. It's just sort of what happens when you get a bunch of people in this very heightened environment.
Yeah. I feel like there's it sucks because I feel like there's a lot of mixing different motives for being there, which mean that, you could potentially you could fall through the cracks if you are trying to socialize with somebody who's not really there to socialize. They're there to find as many hookups as possible, or vice versa. And navigating, do our goals align? And then is somebody being polite by just talking to you when they're not actually interested?
Yeah.
And you're not looking for sex, but they are, but they're not interested in you. And are they direct enough with you to just say it? Or do you feel like you've spent a bunch of time getting to know somebody that doesn't
there's so many
care.
dynamics. Yeah.
Well, and as somebody who's only attended BiggerBash and Bigger Vegas, right? While the two events exist under the same umbrella, they were very different events to me.
Yeah.
In that,
I'd agree with that.
BiggerBash felt like a reunion for people who knew each other, right? There were a lot of sort of cliques that flew together and were so excited to see each other again. And then I noticed there were a lot of people there who were showing up for the first time.
There were a lot of first timers.
Yeah.
There weren't, unlike Bigger Vegas, they didn't have these sort of icebreaker events where people were just sort of put together in a room, say none of you know anyone. Go chat.
Yeah. Bigger Vegas goes on longer, so they have things like speed dating and things like that. Yeah.
And this is not a fault with Bigger Bash. Bigger Bash doesn't have the bandwidth for it because it's a smaller event, right?
Yeah, it was a weekend rather than a full week.
Bigger Bash is a smaller thing that, because it has that reunion vibe, I think it was harder to meet people. For me, I was kind of looking around because I don't know a ton of people there. I was looking around the edges, and I ended up talking with a lot of people who were there for the first time and having really good conversations with them. But I could tell people were having some trouble sort of finding their way in socially with some folks.
So my experience was very much in that same vein of I knew a handful of people returning from Bigger Vegas that I wanted to hang out with. I knew a handful of people that I hadn't seen in a long time that were also going to this. That would be our first event together. And so because the weekend was so short and people were not there for that long, I had a fully scheduled, okay, we're having dinner with them. We're having lunch with them. We're having and there wasn't a lot of room to make random connections.
Yeah. We didn't meet up during the event. I think I saw you at the pool. We waved at each other.
We kind of saw you passing in the night. And so what ended up happening was I did talk to a few people who were first timers, but it was only the couple people that were kind of bold enough to just wade out into the pool alone and say hi to people. And that's not necessarily everybody. That's kind of that's a bold step to take.
I feel for this listener because I'm a veteran of these events, and it, to Don's point, the reunion thing, I felt like it actually, I was expecting a reunion, and I noticed that a lot of people I usually see at Bigger Vegas weren't at the event, and that there were a lot of new people, but also I feel like groups that kind of went to the event together. And I was trying to be on and I'm here as the Big Fat Gay Podcast, and I'm going to do my little extrovert thing. And I was just struggling during this event. And it was one of those things where like, I don't know, like I kept getting in my head, and there was like a point where I was like, no, like I really just got, because I've had that at, Bigger Vegas before, where I get in my head and I'm like not feeling social. And I'm like, okay, no, I just got to restructure, reconnoiter myself. And I had a point where I was just kind of like sitting alone in the hospitality suite. And I'm like, okay, like just, I was waiting for someone I knew to like maybe pass through. And two guys came up and like, oh, is anyone sitting here? I'm like, oh, no. And like, oh, great. And they took the chairs and walked away. And it's like such a like a normal, like, oh, people are looking for, just like, it's such a innocuous interaction.
Innocuous, completely.
But it is like when you're in that mindset of like, this is like not like, no one wants to talk to me. No, I'm all alone. It's like, okay, finishing blow. I'm done. I'm going to go to my room and, recompress. And I feel for the listener, because it's one of those things where even when you are a veteran, you can get into a space where you let interactions that don't go the way you expect really just get to you, and it can be very hard to come back from that. Yeah. Especially when this is something that you have built up and invested a lot in.
Yeah.
But I think it is important to continue to try to go to these events. I think especially like longer events where you just have more time. And I think more time for, those misses.
Right. And to bounce back from.
Yeah. And to bounce back from,
So to kind of get back to that, how the listener kind of left off in their letter, and like, do we think this is reasonable or not? I think it's extremely reasonable.
Yeah.
Like I don't think you're crazy, like for having the experience, like the reaction you had to the experiences that happened. We're really sorry that was the case. Like that's kind of the worst case scenario.
Yeah. I think also just be in your feels, because I think that's important. And I think allowing yourself to feel that, but not letting that kind of color the future for going to these events. And I think really anyone who, when you are at this, one of these events and you have a bad experience and you're just missing or whatever, or just you're overwhelmed, I think it is fine to take time to recollect, go to your room, just kind of like decompress or recompress or whatever kind of compression you need. And just try to think of like, okay, how can I reframe my experience?
If BiggerBash wasn't the vehicle for you, if you have the energy, I would encourage you to try Bigger Vegas again, because it did have a different vibe. It felt like there were more entry points. Just provided by the nature of that
and
larger
more people,
environment.
Too, just more variety.
People,
3 times as many. Yeah.
If you have the energy for it, and if you need to take a little time to put yourself back together, I think everyone will understand. But putting your feet back into the water and trying again, I think is beneficial. It's just beneficial to you on every level.
If you have the resources for it. I know these can be expensive to travel to.
Apropos of that, if you have the resources for it, and something else, these events, they take a lot of time and money, and they tend to therefore be very high stakes. If you live in a place or can get to a place where there's just like a monthly Chub Chaser event, that can feel a lot more relaxed, because it's like, I didn't like it this month. Let me try next month. And there's very little investment of like, oh, I had a great time this month. Oh, so that it's a little more normal.
I don't know. I feel for your listener, because I struggled through the weekend at times, and I hope that next time you don't wait to hear my iconic voice or my
Trevor was hoarse. If you probably couldn't talk by the time that you heard.
Well, because I was screaming at the pool,
trying to scream over the din of the pool party.
Yeah.
I hope we see you at Bigger Vegas 2025, but I understand if not, and I hope you had some other iconic Vegas moments and just had more to your trip that was not just the frustration and the misses.
Yeah. I feel like maybe we should also put a disclaimer here that Bigger City and like sponsors our show, but like we do genuinely stand by our experiences and analysis of these events. And like, we don't expect everyone to like or love it, but it is actually our opinion that these are worth attending if you're able to.
Yeah.
So that said, you don't have to just take our word for it. We went to BiggerBash and we got to have a few conversations with some very interesting people who are enthusiastic to be there. Let's hear what they have to say.
Welcome, everybody. I'm sitting down with a friend of mine that we have here at BiggerBash 2024. The event is officially over, but we're still hanging out on a Monday, and we're going to do a little chit-chat as part of our interviews. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is David. I am from a suburb of Detroit, and this was my first event, so it's kind of exciting for me. I have personal things that made it difficult for me to buy a pass, so I wasn't quite sure how much event I wanted to commit to at first, because it seemed like if I had to buy it a couple months ahead of time, it would be expensive if I couldn't end up going. So I mostly just kind of bummed around with Michael the whole weekend. So I got to dip my toes in a little bit. Like, actually, I did literally dip my toes in the pool. I think for a first event experience, this was fun, where I didn't have to commit too much to anything.
Yeah, and I feel like, so Michael and I, our first event was Bigger Vegas a couple years ago, and I feel like the best way to have done that, which is what we ended up doing, was having kind of like a small pod to like go around with. And it's really helpful to like have a couple people that you know to kind of go around with. Like, I think one of the boldest things you can do at an event like this is show up and be by yourself, and it's your first event. So our kind of schedule, because you didn't have a pass, we were kind of only going to the more like public spaces, which worked out fine because the Palms had a lot of areas. Like, we got lunch with some friends, and then after that on Saturday we went to the pool, which was like the open pool. So tell me a little bit about that experience and kind of walking out into a space where there's so many people in our community.
Well, firstly, it was way too fucking loud.
The music at the pool.
Yeah. I'm a classical musician, so I have opinions on the music, and it's really difficult for me to want to be in a place for a long time where I can tell that my hearing is going to get damaged. So that was concerning for me. And then, of course, like, I wanted to be able to talk to people more, and then it was too loud to do that. So I'm just like shouting at strangers the whole time. Right. So it was a little disappointing that way, I have to be honest. But, we still had some like perfectly pleasant interactions. And then it's also convenient that because everyone is on the same dating app, that I can go find people in the nearby tab and be like, oh, it was lovely meeting you. So I did that for a couple people. It was interesting being in an environment where people were very free with touch. I'm not super used to that because I don't tend to go to like straight-sized gay clubs in Detroit. It just doesn't seem like it's the right crowd for me. There's like a bear bar called the Hayloft Saloon, but it's like vaguely Western themed, and it's like not my jam. So it was interesting meeting people who would just, walk up to me, introduce themselves, and immediately put their arm around my shoulder. That's kind of a different experience for me, where I'm not used to that level of just touch.
So different is different. Was it like, to what degree was it like unwelcome or unwanted or just uncomfortable versus like, oh, this is nice?
It was kind of nice, I have to admit. There was one guy that kissed me on the forehead afterward, where I then watched him walk away and then kiss a few other people on the mouth, where I was like, oh no, you're a super spreader event. But it was, I think, mostly liberating to be around just fat people who were shirtless in a pool, which, even as, like, I didn't take my shirt off, but just seeing that made it feel more possible for me.
Now that we're basically on the other side of the event, like, you haven't gone home yet, but the event itself is over. What were your expectations kind of leading into it, if any? And then how does that compare to how you feel now about it? Like, how does that sort of line up?
I mean, everything was pretty easy, I have to say. There was nothing where I felt like super nervous. It just all felt pretty comfortable. And I think that's mostly to do with just having people I already knew a little bit. Because we've never met before, but like, we've talked online quite a bit. So it was easy to have you as someone who can kind of chaperone me. So I'm not just in an unfamiliar place with like no one as backup.
Is there any one particular like interaction or just like image or like anything that struck you in the moment that was just like very affirming or positive that basically that you can take with you from this point?
I think there was a moment where there was a chub and a chaser on this sort of like lounging pillow next to the pool, and the guy was just openly getting a belly rub. Like, he was just like a porpoise or some kind of sea mammal, just like lounging on a rock and getting affection, and it's like a different kind of affection that I'm used to seeing. So, I'm used to people, even gay people holding hands or like making out in public, but to see belly rubs in a public place was very new to me. I did shave my whole body for this event, so I thought about if I wanted to be more adventurous at the pool, if I wanted to set up a sign where people could pay me $5 to check if I missed a spot.
I think that would be very popular. You had fans. You had my partner Michael was at went to the dance party.
This was so fun.
Somebody that he was talking to who kind of was trying to relate conversation over the very loud music, and it was difficult. So they basically was gesturing to my partner Michael, who's a super chub, like, "Oh, you were with two people," which was the two of us. Which one is your boyfriend? And he kind of gestured small, and then he gestured big.
We liked the big one. Can you tell us more about the big one? Is that your boyfriend?
Yeah, which I think is kind of I don't know, how often does that happen, at a place, just randomly when you just
never
be standing somewhere?
Never. I did actually. When I worked at a music store, I had a customer once who I recognized from, I think, Grindr, who had messaged me, and then he was very rude to me because he was uncomfortable with it. So he demanded that I hook him up with free stuff, and it was like, I'm the one who knows your secrets, dude.
Oh my god, yeah. So kind of the opposite of that experience.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not to say that events are always perfect and your whole life is going to be changed. It's just it opens you up to having those kinds of experiences. And new things are going to either be great or terrible or some mixture of both, but you can't get any of that without doing it for the first time.
Yeah, it's also interesting. I'm used to sort of not being invisible on Bigger City or sometimes on Grindr. I'm completely invisible on Scruff, which is weird to me. But in this in-person environment, I was also no longer invisible, and I always feel like I'm invisible in person. So even to hear through the grapevine from Michael that someone was noticing me specifically, that never happens to me in my daily life. So it's as far as being noticed goes, where I didn't actually have to deal with the complications of that in an actual conversation, it's still a little beginner experience for me, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I also and maybe we can end on this, but so my partner and I actually live here now, so it's very convenient to be able to be hey, we'll go to this or we'll go to that because we don't have to travel. And with that, we've decided we should do a little brunch get together for some people that we know, give them a space where if they want to get away from, the hustle and bustle, they can just sort of hang out at our place. And I feel that was a really nice thing. Dan, Trevor, and Don were there. A few of our other friends were there. Of course, you were there. And it's a nice thing to be able to do because even though you're not participating with the event itself, you still get that sense of community with your friends, and you can introduce people who haven't met each other. And it's only possible because people showed up to the city and got themselves here. And then from there, we can kind of build on top of the baseline experience in some ways.
Yeah, it was also, I'm a shy person, so I wouldn't, even if I recognize a lot of people at this kind of event, I wouldn't necessarily just go up to them. Mm-hmm. So, having a job at brunch of just I'm going to make shakshuka or whatever, it helped me to have something to talk about that wasn't I'm here for the first time and shy, which is maybe not the greatest conversation. So,
I mean, it's an authentic conversation, but I agree. So I'm also very sort of shy socially and like to have something to do in whatever social context, and that comes through in my work. But in this case, we were both cooking, and so we kind of got to be in the room with everyone, but also have something to kind of keep us occupied.
Right.
And I feel that can extrapolate out into event space too, where not necessarily at the pool, because the pool is kind of just all socializing. But if you're going to bingo, for instance, we didn't make it to any of those. Next year, we'll see what happens. I'll probably do a lot more stuff like that. But if you're at bingo, if you're at the game room, if you're at trivia, there's kind of a social structure where people can focus on something and then socialize and conversate as kind of a side effect.
Yeah, I definitely felt by not going to trivia, I had missed my calling because of the people that we went to lunch with, I had the most Drag Race knowledge.
I mean, Bobby's going to have some words to say about that. Do you have any advice or tips for somebody considering going to their very first event?
I did see quite a few butt cracks by the pool. So if you are able to find over the belly swim trunks, I think that might be preferable for most people, where it did seem like people were getting weighed down by their swim trunks getting wet and then falling off. And the people with the over the belly swim trunks seem to have less of a problem with that.
What you don't know is that it's secretly their whole tactic. Like,
yeah,
it's like a peacock showing its feathers. It's like it's part of it. I think that's kind of everything I had. I'm glad you were able to make it out here and hang out and do the flights across the country, because those are always kind of the worst part of the whole experience. And hopefully we'll get to see you at Bigger Vegas next year. We'll see how things shake out.
I may even have my tits out.
May even have their tits out. You heard it here first.
Hi, tell me a little bit about yourself. You go by Nando?
Yes, I do. Yeah. I'm Nando from Huntsville, Alabama.
Wow, Huntsville. And it's your first event?
Yeah, this is my first event ever of a chub chaser, any type of gay event. So, yeah.
That's really great. And so what's it been like? How is it these first few days? Because we're here on Saturday morning.
Oh, it's been great coming in, and all right off the bat, everyone was kind of friendly, and they're just very welcoming. And it's been definitely a good experience for the first time. Just being able to meet people that I've been talking to online for a year or two now, and seeing them in person, and just finally making that instead of that online connection, it's just this emotional and physical connection. It's just been really exciting.
How did you decide to come to this event? What was it like for you? Because I know you have kind of an unusual background from a lot of people in the community, and maybe you want to talk a little bit about that, or what was it like just booking the registration or things like that?
Yeah, so just a little background. I grew up Catholic, but eventually converted to evangelical Pentecostalism during my middle school, high school years. So I grew up, and I actually started pursuing ministry. Oh wow! And I was actually a pastor for a while.
So did you go to ministry school?
Yeah, I got my advanced degrees in religion, and then began to pursue a vocational ministry, and essentially working as a pastor for a number of years. And so it wasn't until I was the typical closeted gay, but try to pray the gay away, the thorn in your side type thing you hear, and type things within that church circle. But it was 4 years ago in 2020, during COVID and stuff. I had this kind of my midlife crisis moment, and came to terms with who I was as an individual, and found out that I was a gay man. But right then I didn't know where to do, where to go. I didn't know what community to build. I just told my friends and family, I'm like, hey, I'm gay. And after that, it was just kind of on my own, trying to figure out who am I as a person within the gay community.
Well, it also sounds like, from what I understand, you had a really positive coming out process for someone who was so deeply in the church. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. So I would say within my family and my friend group, they were very, very welcoming. They were really okay with it. Of course, there's going to be some individuals with their own opinions. Sure. And so it works. I wouldn't say that the church side of things didn't go as well as planned, but it's all good. But yeah, my mom and dad and my sisters were very supportive of it. I was very surprised.
Oh, good.
And so, and of course, my friend group was great. They were just well, obviously, but no, I was very fortunate, compared to some other stories that I've heard.
That's really great. That's wonderful to hear. Did you, a lot of times for fat guys, they find that when they do come out, the gay community can be very not welcoming for a man of size. And did you have to go through any of that stuff, or how was that for you?
So, I think I was also probably the same, I didn't, as a gay man, I was, all I knew was Grindr, I didn't know, where to go, where to start, there's no, and we're in social lock. We were locked down because of COVID, and I was just having to, just stay online and figure out things myself. So it took about 2 years after I came out. To figure out, I happened to just stumble on, the App Store. I typed in like gay dating apps for big men, and eventually I scrolled down and saw Bigger City. I read the description. I'm like, let me just download this, and I downloaded it, and I'm like, it's like a whole new world opened up to me.
Yeah,
it was like the whole terms of like chub and chaser and all the other sub terms that we have. I was like, wow, this is what I've been missing. This is the community that I didn't know existed.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't understand, and I was so shocked, and I was like, man, let me just look more into this. And then of course getting on there, meeting people and befriending friends and kind of putting myself out there as well. It was finally, I felt a sense of community.
Yeah.
But not entirely, because I saw all these events, and I was like, oh, I can't go to those events. Like, I'm not traveling by myself. I'm not going alone. I won't do it. So.
Oh, wow. So you thought that's great for other people, but not me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because I didn't know how to do it, I guess, there was no one a mentor or anything like that to kind of, or someone that had experience said, go to one and try to like walk me through it.
So what turned the tide? Because you got here just fine.
Yeah, so it was definitely met a friend online. His name's Cato, and then we became friends, and we ended up just eventually forming a great friendship. And I had expressed interest in like, oh, this would be kind of a cool event to go to. It's short. It's in Vegas. Never been to Vegas. Checking off one of my bucket lists of visiting all the states in America. So, I was like, it would be a good opportunity. And he's like,
getting Nevada taken care of.
Yeah. And then he's like, well, I'm planning on going. Let's just go together. And he had been to them. He has been to Bigger Vegas. He has been to some other chub chaser events. And so we ended up coming and rooming together, and it's just that's how I'm now here.
That's great. That's really great. Now I wonder, what do you think of this? If you had stumbled upon Bigger City or the whole Chub Chaser universe before, or I'd say earlier, do you think that would have made any difference to your coming out? Like when you came out, how you came out? Would that have made it easier? Because I notice sometimes a lot of fat people are like, well, I'm fat. What's there going to be for me anyway, even if I do come out? Or what's there going to be for me if blah, blah, blah? Do you think it would have had a bearing, or no difference for you?
It may have. I think it probably would have, because I think it would have given me that community that I've always longed for, that I just knew I was looking for in other places. I was like within the church, I was trying to find myself, but I wasn't really being myself.
Yeah.
And maybe that opportunity of hey, there's this community of chubs and chasers that are fully accepting of who you are, that may have helped me understand that a lot better.
Yeah.
But I also think, it took time and understanding who I am that probably would made it easier for me now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the sense I get from you is, the thing that was stopping you all those years was not like, oh, there's no place for me. It was more like, I don't want a place there. I don't want, like, if you're busy being, a non-gay Christian, if you're a gay denying Christian, that you're stopping yourself. It's not like you're encountering a barrier as so much as you are the barrier that you need to get over. Is that accurate for you, or?
Yeah, I would say that would be accurate. I was having to become someone I wasn't for so many years.
Yeah.
And I had formed an identity in that.
Oh yeah.
I formed an identity of a false reality to everyone around me, and it was a fake Nando to everyone. And it wasn't me intentionally doing it. Mm-hmm. I just didn't know what else could there be.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I could be I can be who I am now, the fullest and realest Nando out there that the world sees, and they're happy with who I am, you know?
Yeah.
And so that was I would say, yeah, I mean, I didn't know that. And so I'm glad that I've been through all the mess that I've been through, but I'm also glad I've been through all the good times as well.
I mean, I gotta say, it really must have been monumental to pick up and move your life, not just to another location, but to to a whole other, to you, going back to who you've always been. Yeah. But like, damn, your life isn't set up for that. Your life was never set up to be who you are.
Yeah. I mean, my entire network was within the church atmosphere. And I'm not saying that I've cut everyone out.
No.
But, you know, the more and more I express myself and they see me who I am, the more they kind of just scatter away, you know, they do it themselves.
Did you find anyone supportive? Like, because usually people who stay deserve to stay.
Yes. I found it's been a very slim number.
Yeah.
And they love me for who I am. And they have, you know, they reassure me that you are loved. You are who you are, and we love you for that. We want you to be that. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad I have those. And I kind of instinctively knew who they would be.
Yeah.
Beforehand, you know, and I knew the ones that weren't going to accept and that were going to have more of an issue with it. And that's their problem, not mine.
Was there a point where you're like, I'll be sorry to see them go if they go? Or was it, how was that?
So my biggest thing was when coming out and having to tell the church, I guess my church family, I would say.
But I'm sorry, just by church family, does that mean like friends and community in the church?
Yes, yeah. There'd be individual identified Christians that are close to me.
Yeah.
That, you know, that would consider them a family. Yeah. You know, per se. It wasn't that I was scared of their reaction. I was more scared to find out that their love is conditional. That they tell me now, before I came out to them, oh, we love you no matter what. That term, you know, we love you no matter what. But when I came out, it became, we love you, but we can't accept you. But we can't accept that part of you. We can't accept that behavior or whatever terms that they want to use, sin or God knows what else. What, you know, I've been called a lot of different names since coming out to them. So, yeah. Wow. But that was the biggest fear that drove it for me was I didn't want to find out their love was conditional.
Right.
And sadly enough, a lot of it was. But then, you know, I had to come over that fear. You know, thank goodness for good counseling that I had, for good friends that encouraged me. That, I mean, I was at my friend's house, and they and when I told them that some of the closer people that in my life, when I told them that I was gay, I was at a friend's house, and so I had my support system there just in case if things went rocky. So I was very, very glad that I was able to have that.
That's great. That's really great. And so it looks like you're having a good time. Do you think you'll come back and go to more events?
Oh, absolutely. I've already been like checking my phone, waiting for the Bigger Vegas registration for it to let me get in, so I can go ahead and register for Bigger Vegas this upcoming July. So I'm super excited. So, and for whatever else opens up and other events that show up, I'm ready to go. So this has ignited a little fire in me to see. I mean, we've met some really good people, and I want to see them consistently. I don't want to see not just a one-time thing.
Yeah, no, I find that's very true. That the more you come, the more friends you make. Yeah. And Trevor, my partner, he'll be like, okay, I just have to get from the hospitality suite to the room. And it takes him a half an hour because he keeps bumping into people he knows and they want to say hello and they want to know how you're doing. And like, it takes half an hour to go 50 feet.
Yeah, for sure. And it's been really nice. I'm grateful for everyone that's put on the event. They made it for them, all the hard work they did, because it has helped me solidify that community that I've been longing for a very long time.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for talking to me, Nando. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for letting me be here and share a little bit of my story and my outlook.
Absolutely.
Well, we had such great conversations going that we have plenty more to get to. And in fact, this is part 1, in case you haven't read the title of the episode yet. So we will be coming back next week with part 2, and we'll see you there.